We are 4 days into the second Trump administration, and all of our predictions about how things were going to play out are being realized. Despite knowing how bad things would be, though, and are going to get, looking at the specific actions that are being taken, from the dismantling of entire agencies designed to promote equality to the pardoning of dangerous criminals solely on the basis of their having committed their crimes in service to Donald Trump, it's still pretty breathtaking, no matter how prepared we were going in. But it's really important that we stay grounded. None of this is unbelievable or shocking, or it shouldn't be if we've been paying attention. Things will get worse, but there is no worst. We need to be very clear about that so we're prepared for it. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Nerd Avengers. Just a little housekeeping. All Nerd Avenger episodes are now going to be 8 hours long, so we can keep everybody up to date. I'm just kidding. Mercedes would have killed me. Are you kidding? No, it's just a lot going on. And, our goal is to sift through it and bring you the most up to date, certainly, but also the things that we really feel we need to engage in, and the things that we really shouldn't be letting ourselves being driven crazy by. So glad you were all here. Waj, Brian, Dean. Dean, we haven't seen you in a long time. It's great to see you. And everybody who's watching on YouTube or Twitter or listening on podcasts, welcome, welcome, welcome. Dean, I want to start with you. One, because it's been a while, and two, you have to leave a little bit early. That we're going to start with Donald's first sit-down interview since the tragic day of January 20th, 2025. At least we have cats, right?
I love his flowers, by the way.
Hey, Tara.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, so of course, he sat down with Sean Hannity and discussed several topics that give us, not that we needed more insight necessarily, but into his thought processes, such as they are, and what Donald is focusing his deformed attention on. So they started, of course, with not providing aid to California. Let's watch this clip.
I don't think we should give California anything until they let water flow down into there from the north to the south. This is a political thing. I don't know what it is. They talk about the Delta smelt. It's a little tiny fish like this. They say it's an endangered species. Well, how is it endangered? No wonder it's endangered. It's not getting any water. How do you, if you have a fish and you're stopping the water, isn't that going to hurt the fish?
Okay, so that's one thing, and this is not new. This was during this is a big issue during the campaign. But before we talk about that, I also want to play another clip, but just to kind of keep in mind where we're going. The idea that the federal government would withhold aid from a state suffering one of the greatest natural disasters I think we've seen. Certainly in my lifetime, because they disagree with the politics of that state, especially given the fact that California pays much, much more to the federal government in tax dollars than all red states, actually, most of which are quote unquote welfare states. But then here's another clip, which is thematically related, about Donald's hinting that perhaps President Joe Biden should have pardoned himself.
This guy went around giving everybody pardons. And you know, the funny thing, maybe the sad thing, is he didn't give himself a pardon. And if you look at it, it all had to do with him.
That's not a threat, is it, Dean?
No, I love that Joe Pesci is now doing the voice of Donald Trump. I'm funny how? How, you prick? Come on. That's just sound like to me. It's like, no, he's a big boy. Let him answer himself. I'm a clown? How am I funny? So that's the best thing. You've got Trump as Pesci. And I like Pesci. He's a Jersey guy from, Italian. I'm half Italian, Jersey guy, so I connected.
Me too.
Pesci. Look, there's too much there, Mary. What
I know.
do you want
I'm
me to
sorry.
talk about?
I
First of
told
all,
you this show is now 8 hours long.
It should be. And Trump has already aged me in 4 days. Look at me. I'm 23. Look what he's done to me. I'm dying on the inside. First of all, as the conditioning aid to blue states, I predicted before, and I mentioned on the show and talked to you, Mary, about it, on everything they want to do. They got the House and the Senate. All their cultural issues, they will try to condition all aid in the future on, like banning abortion or complying with their transgender directives, one after the other. And some will be upheld by the courts and some won't, because the courts have said in the past, there has to be some connection between the aid and the conditions you apply. You just can't do that on left field. We want to do this one, right? But they control the courts too. They control the Supreme Court, so that's kind of bad. Yeah, I think they will do that in the future. This is just the beginning of that. We're going to have a fight there. On pardoning himself, I watched some of that interview, unfortunately. The best part was with Hannity trying to get Trump to talk about the economy for 5 times. And he would. And at some point, Trump actually said, stop it. The economy's great now. He literally said the economy is great now last night. The same guy who campaigned that we were in a depression. It was the Great Depression. There was going to be Hoovervilles and people lined up at soup kitchens. But now, 3 days in, the economy is great. It was always great. It never mattered. So, look, pardoning himself, Trump right now, the Donald, is in his brain trying to figure out how he can exact revenge against Joe Biden. And will the pardon of the family members protect them, but doesn't affect Trump? Doesn't affect Biden? And retribution and revenge are the two things that Stuart Rhodes and Enrico Tarrio, the head of the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, said they wanted yesterday. They want revenge. And the exact words of Enrico Tarrio were, now it's our turn. Yep. Okay, folks, that's what he said yesterday. Now it's our turn. So they all want revenge. They all want blood. Trump has pardoned them, and he'll future pardon as well. The promise is there to incentivize more violence on behalf of them. It's not good, but at least we're not in the camp, right? I look at the upside. We're not in the camp yet.
Yeah,
Mary might be at a camp. It looks like a camp-esque type of place behind.
I'm in a summer camp though, so that's
a summer.
Okay.
It looks funny, like you made the laws, but now you're going to be back in your cell. Okay, fine.
Yes, it's all an illusion. Actually, nice. Dean, I want to stick with you for a second because you wrote a really great article about how we should handle January 6th, and I want to play this clip of Donald just listen to how Donald describes January 6th.
It would be very, very cumbersome to go and look. You know how many people we're talking about? 1,500 people. Almost all of them should not have been. This should not have happened. And the other thing is this: some of those people were the police too, but they were very minor incidents. Okay, they get built up by a couple of fake guys that are on CNN all the time. Nobody watches. They were very minor incidents. And it was time. You have murderers in Philadelphia. You have murderers in Los Angeles that don't even get any time. They don't even collect them, and they know they're there to be collected. And then they go on television and act holier than thou about this one or that one. You had 1,500 people that suffered. That's a lot of people.
Yes, unlike the police officers, because who cares about them?
Right.
Yeah. So Dean, you have what I think is a great idea, and if you could explain it, take a couple.
Sure, Mary. I have some of my PowerPoint. Please cue it up. Here we go. It's going to begin this way. Look, first of all, we all know that of the people Donald Trump released, about 600 were either convicted or charged with assaulting police officers. About 200 with deadly weapons. And then they have the seditious conspiracy people, which if people read the law is literally one step below treason. Seditious conspiracy is one step below treason. So you got Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, a bunch. Here's my idea. It's using the Megan Law idea. Megan Law is that because there's a murder in 1994 of this young girl in New Jersey by a sexual predator who moved across the street and nobody knew at that time that person was a sexual predator. The law comes into place. Now state after state has now embraced it. if you're a sexual predator, sexual offenses that you've committed, you have to notify local police when you come there. And that's public. And the neighbors get to know it. I think the same thing for anybody who is convicted or pled guilty to a felony for January 6th. Wouldn't you want to know the leader of the Proud Boys, who was convicted of seditious conspiracy, is moving to your neighborhood? Wouldn't the police want to know that people are there who have brutally beat up police officers and almost killed them, and drove some to commit suicide afterwards? So I think everyone would want to know. And I did some research from a legal point of view. It's valid. It's not a new penalty. The pardon for Trump is for federal crimes, not for state actions. States can actually prosecute you if they've committed a crime independent of the pardon of the federal crimes. So there's no doubt this would be valid. I wish the blue states would do it. And they can either call it the Brian Slitnick Act to remember him, or the Donald J. Trump January 6th Act. So forever, Donald J. Trump's name and the January 6th attack are forever reminded in a law across the nation where people have to report, and they go, he has to comply with the Donald J. Trump January 6th Act. So forever his name and January 6th. So that's my thing. It's a little thing. And it's not a punishment. I think you would want to know if someone who attacked the Capitol moved next door, because they're going to commit more crimes, because they already arrested someone yesterday for a gun charge in Florida for violating. And again, Stuart Rhodes and Enrico Tarrio have made it very clear they want retribution. We should be guarded by that. That's all I want, is notify, let the police know it, let us know it, the same way with Megan's Law going forward. Like sex offenders, January 6th terrorists are a threat to our community.
Yes, indeed, they are.
Can we take a vote? The vote? Who's in favor? All in favor? Done. That's it. We got it. All right. Brian's still waiting. Brian wants to see the lobbyists. He could talk to him. Right,
he's like, yeah,
Thank you for letting me share my article. I appreciate it.
No, it's great. Everybody should check it out on Dean's Substack, the Dean Report. So, again, a lot going on. So I want to shift gears. Obviously, we're going to talk more about January 6th later on in the show, but I wanted to shift gears, Brian, and talk about the very troubling moves that are being made by some media outlets. We've heard, this is according to a report by the New York Post, that CNN CEO Mark Thompson has instructed journalists and hosts there, like Jake Tapper and Anderson Cooper and 100 others, to avoid expressing personal outrage during Donald's inauguration, emphasizing the need for fair-minded coverage. So I guess, Brian, it's only fair-minded if you don't report the bad stuff.
Well, I'm okay with not expressing personal outrage. I don't have to be personally outraged to point out how stupid, destructive, deleterious, divisive, anti-democratic, pro-plutocracy, pro-fascist, pro-moronic, pro-anything but democracy. See, none of that's personal. Those are just facts. I have no problem with. Now, personally, I think he's a smelly, no good POS. I don't need to say that.
But wait a second. I just have a quick question. I mean, I understand what you're saying in terms of journalists, but Tapper and Cooper, they're hosts. Like, that's kind of their thing. Like,
yes.
That's what hosts of these shows do. That's why they're not, they're not news in the sense that other, like, earlier programs in the day, they have
these
a
are opinion shows.
They have a slant. I mean, it's like change your programming.
Well, yeah, those are opinion shows. Label them as such. I'm fine. But to say that you can't have a personal opinion, well, that's anti-democratic. I have no problem as a reporter. As I've said before, I've had reporters come to me and say, this is what I think. And I tell them, I don't care what you think. I barely care what I think. What do you know? What we know about Donald Trump without being personal is frightening enough. So you know what, CNN, the boss there, if you want to play that game, I'll lay Donald Trump out with just the facts, fine. But if in all honesty, if you're not allowing an opinion maker to voice their opinion, you're a detriment, you're a problem. So, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, hey, you can't talk about him personally and then take away all criticism of him, because there's plenty of criticism about Donald Trump that you don't have to lean into personally. So I'd like to see them take the head of CNN at his word and just blast Donald Trump for every damn anti-democratic POS move he's ever made. And that's my personal opinion.
But they're not going to. They're not going to, though.
No, they won't. They're scared. Bottom line is, Sarah, that what that has done. Now, let's talk about the consequence of that, because you're right. What that has done is further dampened criticism of Donald Trump for fear of losing your job, losing access, or losing the ability to speak on air. It's so
right, and
to your point, this particular method of going after the opinion makers is disingenuous because they don't want to just squelch personal animus against Donald Trump. They want to squelch all criticism of Donald
Trump.
Because no matter whether it's personal or it's based on facts. So it's BS at the very bottom. Sorry for the rant, but this.
No, it's okay.
No, it's okay.
It's okay. Wait, hang on, Tara. Tara, hang on 1 second because I want you to go next. But I wanted to just add something into the mix, because it's not just no personal opinions, what have you. They're also reorganizing CNN. They're laying off a couple hundred people, and Jim Acosta, who is one of the good guys, they're offering to move him from his current 10 a.m. slot to a midnight slot. Does that seem like a promotion to us?
No, that's like he's giving.
Yeah, we're going to Tara, Brad.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
A few things. So yes, all of that is true. The directive that came down from Mark Thompson before the inauguration to tell CNN not to bring up the fact that he's a felon and to reiterate the fact that where he's being inaugurated is the same location that January 6th happened, which he was clearly a part of creating. All of that was missing. So it's beyond just like Tapper or Anderson or the guys who have opinions as hosts. It was literally telling everyone that they cannot report the facts and not report and that context and not putting those things in context has had a chilling effect. Oliver Darcy does amazing reporting on this, and he wrote about that meeting that they had. It's not abnormal to have an editorial meeting before a major live event, but what is abnormal is for the CEO of the news organization to basically tell people how to cover it and threaten them, because they also the Jim Acosta news was a threat. That was a signal to tell them, if you take the tough approach that Jim Acosta has taken, and by the way, his show gets better ratings. It's a higher rated show than all of their daytime and gets better ratings sometimes than their primetime shows. So it has nothing to do with ratings, which is why we all know that it was his way. It's like when you're a police officer and you piss off the captain, you get put on midnights, right? It's the same thing. Midnight, oh, this is gaslighting everyone. Oh, this is actually a good thing because it's going to open up the West Coast market from 12 to 2. Oh, and by the way, you have to pick up your whole life in Washington and move to LA. Like, get the fuck out of here. I love Jim Acosta. I consider him a friend, and I don't know what he's going to do, but I cannot imagine that he's just going to go, okay, because we all know what this is about. So the fact that CNN's coverage on Monday was, oh, and by the way, when questions, the floor was opened for questions. If anybody had any questions during that editorial meeting, no one stood up. No one spoke out. No one stood up because they all understood that this is a losing battle here. The decisions have already been made. It's not a democracy inside CNN now. These decisions are being made. They're coming from on high. Zaslav is a
democracy.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying, like, to that point that they're not actually asking for any real feedback. They're being voluntold, as my husband jokes about in when you get, you're voluntold. So the people who own CNN are Trump supporters. They are trying to basically choke the life out of what CNN used to be. They want to sell it off. And, this is the beginning of that, which is why it's so important that people support independent platforms like this and like ours and like what we're doing at Seneca and what everyone here has their platforms. We have to, because we're up against this concerted effort to control the flow of information where we are literally living in Orwellian times. I mean, CNN going on and on about, Ivanka's freaking designer hat or whatever the fuck. I don't know. Like, what are we doing? That you don't mention, CNN doesn't mention that the inauguration is happening inside the Capitol building where hundreds of thousands of Trump supporters were smearing feces on the wall and attacking police officers trying to overturn a free and fair election. You don't mention that? That's fact. It's fact. But no, they conveniently leave it out to leave out context to normalize this, which is the most dangerous part and infuriating.
Yeah, it's infuriating to watch. It's it's dangerous for the obvious reasons, but also it's dangerous because many people who watch those shows won't know what's going on. They'll,
Right.
It'll just kind of become normal.
Well, that's exactly it. I was having a conversation. I'm in some WhatsApp threads with some friends of mine who some of them are in the government, and we had a conversation right before I joined your show, where we're like, wow, I never thought I'd live during the end of an empire that decided to self-destruct. And that's where I feel like, people say don't be grim, but you have to look at the science. I mean, another big piece of news, Mary, was that the EEOC is dismantled. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, right? Which was
saving money, folks.
And also, Donald Trump's White House decided to court Latinos. Everyone's talking about the Latinos by getting rid of the Spanish language page on the White House. So what better way to attract?
That'll do it.
Yeah, like you have all these Latinos who their first language is Spanish. They're like, oh, wonderful. One of the many benefits of DEI, which people don't realize, is you offer multiple languages to court and attract a wide, diverse base, like Costco does, which is why Costco is one of the only corporations that has maintained its DEI practices, because it says it is great for business. Because at the end of the day, whoever does DEI well actually gets the more green, the color that trumps all other colors. But what we're witnessing in real time is the hoods are off. Okay, no more tiki torches. They're openly going after people of color, women, anyone who's not white, male, or Christian. Notice, and I think by next week it'll be clear, DEI is a code word for anybody who is not white, male, or Christian in any position of power. Okay.
Waj, just really quick, I don't know if you saw, but they sent out guidance yesterday to all the employees of the Department of Homeland Security, to all the cabinet agencies, to all government employees, not only about the DEI offices being shuttered and that the people who work in them are being placed on leave, at least it's paid leave for now, but these are people who actually have jobs, who have families, who have been working, who are abruptly being told, this is it for you. Thousands of people, but they're asking people, volunteering people to snitch on their coworkers. If you see or are aware of any programs that may have been renamed that are actually DEI, you have 10 days to report it, or else there will be adverse consequences. What does that mean? So they're actually not only just saying we're getting rid of it, they're trying to turn people on each other, which is very bad. Are we going to start hiding people on our floorboards next?
Well, yeah, probably.
Right. That's an aspect of this that I think that is getting underreported. So go ahead, Waj.
Hang on. I want to move over to Dean for a sec because he's got to leave in a couple minutes. So, just following on what Tara and Waj have been saying, Dean, this is comprehensive. It's sort of, it would be bad enough, obviously, if they were just dismantling DEI programs. Again, diversity, equity, inclusion, the horrors, that would be bad enough, right? And that's happened. People are getting laid off. These programs will cease to exist in the federal government, just like federal buildings aren't allowed to fly rainbow flags anymore because God forbid anybody but rich white men be represented in this country. But again, they are calling for people to narc on their coworkers and or face adverse consequences. I did want to point something out, though. There has been a movement to counter this by flooding the office with emails. I think somebody on Blue Sky reported Donald and J.D. Vance for being DEI hires because they only got their jobs because of their race and gender, right? And they're unqualified and in some cases convicted criminals. So that's been happening, and that's awesome and that's great, but it does not it doesn't change the fact that this is scary stuff. And it's, again, not just about DEI. They are rescinding programs that were put in place, I think, in the Eisenhower administration. This is not about DEI. This is getting rid of all non-discriminatory policies in the federal government.
Certainly. I mean, first of all, I should mention that I've changed my name. I'm no longer Dino Badal. I'm Dino Badalia. So I'm going Italian the whole way. Sorry, Waj. I'm leaving the club. You guys are on your own.
See,
So
you have Dean. I have nothing. What are you going to do with Wajahat? My parents
nothing. Yeah,
I'm going to turn you in for the DEI reward. That's what I'm going to do. That's what it's all about. There should be some reward. There should be some gift. Like, there should be rewards, and then I can turn in people, and then I'll split it with them. I'm like, look, I'm going to turn you in. I'm going to split the reward with you, and there's nothing. For diversity, DEI to the right is diversity is different shades of white people. Equity is the stocks you own, and inclusivity is the idea of the I is for inclusive country clubs that you belong to, or uninclusive country clubs you belong to. What the worst part of all this, Mary, is that to the right, DEI means anyone who's not a white guy. Right. Yeah. So if anyone who gets hired anywhere who's not a white guy, they're going to turn them in.
White
and
Christians,
you're going to have right-wing actors,
white
right?
Christians.
If they can fit right. So if they're and the chilling effect this is going to have on hiring for bosses are going to be worried, like, if I hire this person of color who's great and not the white person, am I going to get turned in? They're going to get backlash to me. And people of color might think, like, do I really want to work for the federal government where there's so many great workers? There are great jobs, great careers, great benefits. You know, in various agencies, we're going to lose some of the best of the best, be replaced by some of the white guys who listen to Joe Rogan's podcast. God bless them. You know, some might be okay, but they're not the best of the best. They're not the top. They're not the cream of the crop. So that's my concern, is that anybody who gets hired who's of color now, or if you're of color working these agencies, you're going to be viewed as lesser, that you're inherently inferior, that you only got your job in the old regime when it was DEI. You could never beat a white person. And of course, all of this underlying it is white supremacy, this myth that white men are inherently superior. So everybody only gets their job. Not that you've outworked them. You can't be smarter or better, just that somehow there's a program that got you that job. It is a cancer. This MAGA is a cancer to our nation. It's a cancer to everyone who's not a white male Christian right winger. And, you know, to Roger's point too, the idea of seeing this on our watch as Americans is beyond me. I can't believe watching in Viktor Orban's Hungary, he had to use the apparatus of government to make media comply. You don't have to do that in Trump's America. They're bending the knee on their own to make more money or not be harassed. It is unbelievable. And I fear for comedians and comedy shows down the road if we're going to see self-censorship with maybe an SNL, with some of the late night talk shows, if he targets one of them and tries to take away the license of an FCC, like for the network, it's not cable. So it's a concerning thing.
Do we know, speaking of that, do we know why Jimmy,
Fallon?
No, the other one.
Kimmel.
Why Jimmy Kimmel decided not to host the Oscars again? I wonder if it's out of fear.
Man, I can't.
I think
I would
left his lunchbox at the White House. I couldn't put my daggone lunchbox in the refrigerator the other day. When I opened it up, it said Jimmy Kimmel. It took up the whole shelf.
Can I say something real quick?
I'm just wondering. I mean, that's just me completely speculating.
Yeah.
But I just wonder because he's been targeted.
So last year when he hosted, I believe it was last year, if you recall, during the presentation, he came out and read Donald's attack on him in the Oscars. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Behind the scenes, the producers told him not to do that, and Jimmy said, "I'm going to do it."
Yep.
And so that's why, read between the lines. I mean, they have a great host, Conan, but that's probably the reason why Jimmy's not there.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that would surprise me about that is that he would
peace out.
Oh, thanks, Dean.
Dino Bedalia is out. Bye-bye, losers. I'm on my own. I got to join the Tim Pool Mega Club now. I'm going to be going.
Thank you, Italian American Dino.
He is not Arab or Muslim. He is Italian.
I'm Sicilian. Actually, I am Sicilian, to be honest. So that's a merger of both the Italian and like Sicily and Arabs. We're all united there. All right, guys. I'll visit you all in the camps.
Jesus. So yeah, Brian, this is our Orwellian. I woke up and started, getting ready, and just felt like I was in the middle of the 1984, the brilliant novel, prescient novel by George Orwell. Because in addition to getting people to narc on their coworkers and employees who might be, code switching to get some DEI programs under the radar. Like, who thinks like that, right? We also have, exactly. Donald also revoked an executive order that banned discrimination in federal contracting. Fun. And he just, and it was described
right?
Since 1965
in place.
And saying that it, quote, it undermined, quote, our national unity, unquote. So it's sort of it's happening fast and furious. But I think one thing we just have to remember is that it is all of a piece. Like, it's not like they're different, completely unrelated. It's all part of the project of
2025.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
It's
and we knew this. We knew this, right? So
we did know it going in. We still elected him, and bottom line to me, it isn't. If you're going to go Orwell, I think it's more Animal Farm, where some pigs are more equal than others. And he's definitely Napoleon the pig.
Combination of both.
He's a huge pig, and look. It's not Donald. It's all the people around him that he's enabled. That is far more frightening to the prospect of democracy. Donald Trump is transactional. If he had made friends with everybody else and they had given him boatloads of money, he might have drifted to the left, but he drifted to where the money was. And these were desperate people who felt like they weren't being heard in the federal government. They gave him tons of money. Elon Musk did it just because he wants to go to Mars and give a funky salute in front of thousands of people. It's all about what's in it for me, and that's not changed. And we have to be aware of it, and we have to react to it. And the media has to quit playing the game of both sides and everything. And CNN is going back to what you were saying earlier. It angers me to no end that you're going to have people that are going to be kept from providing valuable information to the American electorate under the guise of it being personal animus. This isn't personal. I don't know. Look, I've been in a room with Donald Trump. I know him, but I don't have any personal feelings about him other than the fact that I don't like his hairdo, and I wouldn't invite him over to my house for a barbecue because he'd be the guy sitting in the corner babbling incoherently, and we'd have to get him a ride home. I mean, that's the guy. But it's professionally and it's existentially where I have the problems, and it's factually. The facts show that Donald Trump is a fascist, transactional fascist. The facts show that Donald Trump is a transactional racist. He may not feel that way himself. I'll give him that, but he enables everybody who is.
Yes, he does.
He totally does. I know.
Yeah, he's guilty by association with those people because he enables them. And the fact
he's guilty because he believes he's a racist.
Yeah, well, but he I don't care. It's enabling the racism. It's enabling the people who have the money to hurt the rest of us. If you don't like me and you want to be a racist, I'll live with that. But you can't be the guy that enables all the other racists to squelch. So we've got poor Dean now adopting himself as a Sicilian when we know better. He's out of the club because he's, I know it's a joke, but this is the problem. I don't care what your personal opinions are. Everyone's entitled to them. I may disagree with what you say, but I will defend to death your right to say it. What I will not defend and what has got to stop is the enabling of people who will force others to their mindset. Christians who aren't Christian, who don't even understand for example.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Let me just finish this rant because this pisses me off beyond no. I interviewed a reverend in front of the inaugural who did not even know the Bible, though he said he was happy to vote for Donald Trump because he's against the gays. And I said, well, what happened to Matthew 25:40? And he goes, I don't know that passage in the Bible. That's Jesus.
Well, you know what? Come on, bro. You know what? Let's move on because they don't know anything, and that's sort of the point. I mean, for them to come out,
they know they're butthurt. That's what they know.
If they, for them to come out about Bishop Budd, who had the audacity to preach Christianity in a Christian church. I mean, that's where we are, Waj, right?
Yes.
So let's. I know you wanted to talk about this other aspect of what's happening. With all of these anti-discrimination laws being rescinded and programs being rescinded, et cetera.
Yeah, there's so much happening that we have to be pithy and keep it brief, because Stephen Miller openly said in a New York Times profile that he wants to flood the zone. And flooding the zone, if you recall, is Steve Bannon's strategy to overwhelm you, to blitzkrieg you. Mm-hmm. So it's not just the fact that he's sending troops to the border for no reason. It's not just the fact that now there's refugees who were promised to come here are now stuck. It's not just the fact that there's all these migrants now stuck in Mexico. It's not just the fact that they're attacking the Civil Rights Act. It's not just the fact that they're literally canceling anyone they don't like. So much for cancel culture. they're also attacking their base, right? And this is something where I'm thinking about this, about how, forgive me for thinking strategically, how to dismantle MAGA, how to weaken the enemy. And I do think an aspect that people are overlooking, and I know this might get a little bleak, just stick with me, is MAGA has created and radicalized and weaponized its base. It's like Frankenstein's monster, right? What happened if you read the novel? The monster escapes the lab. It was a Trump supporter who tried to kill him. It was a Trump supporter who blew up his Cybertron truck. It was Trump supporters who went and tried to kill Mike Pence. And these DEI initiatives, because a lot of Americans have been duped by right-wing media to, let's be honest, they think it's me and Tara, right? And you, Mary, right? Brian, you're Lebanese, you're also included. I'm outing you. But what DEI, folks, also includes disabled veterans, white men and women who fought and were wounded in our country. That also includes DEI. And once they go after DEI, another thing that I'm sure Tara could talk about is how they're going after veterans' benefits right here in Virginia. Also, when it comes to Brian's point about refugees, Franklin Graham said the bishop, who was so amazing, Reverend Buddy, she was a woke bishop. And then they said, Franklin Graham, what do you think about Donald Trump and his ban on refugees? Because you support a Christian charity that is affected, that brings Christian refugees, and now they can't come. And he goes, Mary, wait for it. I didn't know that. And now what we're witnessing is a lot of the white veterans voted for Trump. They're like, but my benefits. And some white disabled veterans are like, but I'm not DEI. It's Tara. So this is what we're also seeing, folks. And I believe, and forgive me for being diabolically Machiavellian here, is this civil war this civil war that's brewing in MAGA. I believe there's two fronts. There's a front, our front, Mary, as legacy falls, as institutions fall, as all bend the knee, as I've talked to you before, offline and online, as we've shared on your show. There's a space for the rest of us who are truth tellers, who believe in the American dream, who are willing to say the truth. I think we will, inshallah, be rewarded. The best way you can reward us is to like, subscribe, and leave a tip. And then also,
well done.
Thank you. And also, this internal friction in MAGA will not last. Once they realize Donald has played them, and he said it in the clip, right? When Sean Hannity, it was a really interesting clip, and this last point I'll say it and pass it over to you and Tara, is if you saw the clip, and I've seen so many of these clips, Sean Hannity was a reek, but he tried several times to get him back on track, and he was visibly disturbed.
He always does that.
Yeah, but he was just like, okay, but the economy, and what Donald said is, quote,
right now we have a clip. I want to play that clip if we have it.
A bunch of losers. Joe Biden has very bad advisors. Somebody advised Joe Biden to give pardons to everybody but him. They wanted to take economy. Yeah, but Sean, they wanted to. I don't care. This is more important because right now the economy is going to do great. I want to know. I'm here, so they got. But you have to understand, he had bad advisors on almost everything. It's like in the old days when the Secretary of State said he never made a correct decision on foreign policy. Joe Biden had very bad advice.
I do not care about the economy.
I just thank God for the foreign press, especially our British allies there, who are not beholden to the same tactics, the scare tactics that Trump is using with our domestic media. I did an interview this morning with The Guardian talking about all of this. They're like, so what's your reaction to the first week? And I said, well, I mean, we tried to warn people. This is what Trump said he was going to do. But I would just challenge all of those people, not the MAGAs right now, because they'll get there eventually, maybe never. But like all the other people who are lukewarm in the middle that were like, it was the price of eggs. I challenge all of them to explain to me how any one of these actions that Donald Trump has focused on, because the first actions are usually the priorities, how that is supposed to help this country and the economy and the price of eggs. It's not, because it's not about that for Trump or MAGA. It's about dismantling democracy and replacing it with the cancer, which is a term that I've used for many years about MAGA and Trumpism. I used it in my departure video and writings about why I left the party. I'm like, this is a cancer that has metastasized in a way that I can no longer be a part of the party. It's killing it. And now it's metastasized into our mainstream politics and every other thing. And people need to be challenged. How does this fit with what you claim? You claim you're not about the racism or, all the extremism and all the other nasty things that Trump does. No. I voted for him because he's going to be tough and he's going to change. He's going to make affordability better. Okay, how does changing the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America do that? How does invading Greenland do that? How does pardoning the January 6th insurrectionist traitorous bastards who assaulted police officers do that?
Tara, can I ask you a question?
How?
Mary,
Yeah.
can I ask Tara a quick question, if you don't mind? For the Republicans that for the people who are quiet in DC, because we know a lot of them who kind of know that he's terrible but still go along with it.
Yep.
What's the sentiment? What's their sentiment right now? The ones who haven't broken like you broke.
So, that's interesting you say that, because there aren't that many who are willing to admit it because they know that they've played a role in enabling it. So they have to stick to we have to move forward. We have to move forward. The whole thing about the January 6th stuff, which they know in their gut is so wrong and such a betrayal, and that it has really undermined their ability to ever say that they back the blue or the rule of law. They know it's wrong. The ones that haven't gone complete MAGA. I'm not talking about the MAGA, the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Nancy Maces and those horrible people, like the ones that know better. And there's a bunch of them. They're just like, the American people spoke. We have to move forward.
But
it's like that. I'm like, that is a cop out. I was like, that's a cop out.
I think we need to disabuse people of the notion that this is what people voted for, because people don't pay attention. They were told that they've been told forever that the only important thing is the economy. They were told by the people they listened to, the economy was the worst economy in the planet, and it wasn't, and they were suffering horribly, even if they weren't, because I guess people just don't believe their own eyes anymore. And just speaking of the economy, and then I want to move on to something else. This is what Jamie Dimon had to say about inflation. Look at this slide. Tariffs can be positive for national security, even if inflationary, quote, get over it, unquote. I mean, we cannot win for losing. That is absolutely 180-degree shift from where we were in the economy. Joe Biden is so bad on inflation. He's destroying the planet. And if you vote for him, we're all going to die. Like, that's basically where we were. Anyway, Brian, I want to move on to...
and just so people remember, inflation was at 9.4% when Joe Biden took office because of the way that Donald Trump and his administration screwed up COVID. And it came down to 2.2% at one point, 2.5, and it's fluctuated a little bit there. But that has how decreased inflation became under Joe Biden.
Yeah, and we, the United States economy was the best economy on the planet after, because of the Biden administration.
Right. It's crazy.
Anyway, you'll be happy to know that Republicans in the House are continuing the serious work of investigating January 6th, which is important, especially in light of the pardoning of the insurrectionists and seditionists. But wait. Brian, guess what? The one thing this committee will not be investigating.
Donald Trump?
No, January 6th.
Right.
It will be everything beforehand and everything after. It's being led by Representative Barry Loudermilk, who, by the way, is the guy who gave a tour of very, off-limits parts of the Capitol building to people who ended up engaging in the insurrection. And it's intended to challenge the conclusions of the House Select Committee on January 6th, led by Bernie Thompson and Liz Cheney, who all had to be pardoned for fear of retribution. And it's scrutinizing the actions of former Speaker Nancy Pelosi regarding her her actions on January 6th, while Donald did nothing. Yeah, it's like, this is where it is. This is where we are. It is upside down world. And again, in the face of those pardons, should it surprise us that they are, especially the worst of the offender. Well, they're rewriting history, but
like
the worst of the offenders.
Well, wait a minute.
Right?
Can I finish my hello? Am I talking? I just want to finish my sentence and then you can have it, okay? That the worst of them, like the Stuart Rhodes and the Enrico Tarrios, are promising revenge and vengeance and retribution. And Stuart Rhodes was back at the Capitol building yesterday, which is just, well, here we are, right? Brian?
You're Tara. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Brian.
Oh, look, I guess, as a reporter, I'm the guy who's got to just give you the facts, okay? Here are the facts. I was there on January 6th. Anybody who wants to say it wasn't an insurrection, then you're a liar. And anyone who wants to investigate those who investigated the insurrection, you're anti-democratic. And anybody who says that anything that happened on January 6th in any way resembles a peaceful transfer of power or peaceful protest, you weren't there, you don't know, shut up and sit down. I had friends of mine who were beaten. I have a friend, Harry Dunn, who's a cop, who to this day holds personal animus and is extremely upset that Donald Trump has, in fact, pardoned people who were after police officers. Every police officer there now has the morale affected because of it. If Congress is going to investigate anything, they should investigate themselves for their lack of understanding, their lack of appreciation for democratic norms, their lack of understanding of what justice is, and their lack of adherence to the Constitution. They can go screw themselves very loudly, very quietly. I don't care. They need to get raw dog, because at the bottom line, this was a freaking travesty of justice, a freaking travesty of democracy. When I sat there and witnessed what they did, and the fact that now you have Congress coming out defending what they did, and the fact that you have people out on the streets who engaged in violent crimes. Oh, you want to get rid of immigrants who you claim there are millions of who created violent crimes, but as long as there's domestic terrorists, stochastic domestic terrorist.
Say that 10 more times.
Stochastic terrorism. Everyone should Google an appropriate term.
If you want to defend that, that's not democracy. And it's anti-constitutional. It's good Lord, it's anti-freaking humanity, man. These people were dangerous, and they created a crime. They need to be punished for it, and the Congress is only showing themselves up to be as bad as everyone says they are by continuing walking down this path. And will there be a retribution in 2026? I hope there's a reckoning. I don't like the term.
I hope there's an election, right?
I hope there's an election and there's a reckoning.
Because Tara, to Brian's point, this is, again, we were talking about, they're flooding the zone. All of these things are happening at once, and it feels chaotic. But there's one goal in mind here, and it is to get rid of American democracy.
Yes, clearly. I mean,
people recognize that.
Yeah, the problem is that so many people, including the people who are in control of how our information is distributed and how it's framed, are ignoring this. For the 4 years since January 6th, they have allowed that narrative to take hold, where mainstream media has not held Republicans or Donald Trump really to account every time they try to rewrite history. So when they go on the Sunday shows, or they go on these shows and the MAGA apologists try to rewrite history and try to tell us we didn't see what we saw, they're not challenged in a way that exposes them for the hypocrites that they are. For example, what they should do is every single time, and this is what Democrats should do during congressional hearings or any time they're in front of a camera, if they still care about making sure that history isn't rewritten, or apply this to anything that MAGA or Trump says that's hypocritical or against something that they said before. Because they try to say, oh, I didn't say that, or I'm not familiar with that, or I don't know what you're referring to, but, and then they go on with their, no. Show the clip. You show the clip. this is what happened. Are you denying that this is what happened? And make
Well,
them
actually,
have to answer for it.
I think that's part of what might be going on with Acosta. He had a Republican on who was like, January 6th was fine. It was fun. It was peaceful. And Acosta's like, I am literally showing you the clips of the violence as we speak.
Tim Burchett, it was from Tennessee, who I believe is a chairman of a committee. And and what happened? You see that they're full of it. So more people need to do that. When, Margaret Brennan and Kirsten Welker and all of these people who do these, the shows on the Sunday mornings, see, they don't want to do that because they're worried if they get them and they show them for being the hypocrites that they are, that they're liars, they won't get the interviews anymore. And this is the access journalism push and pull here, which has been a disservice to our country. Let me tell you what Republicans would do, right? Republicans, I'll just use Pete Hegseth as an example. Republicans would have beaten the drum. Could you imagine if a Democrat had nominated someone like Pete Hegseth for the Department of Defense job? Republicans would have every single interview, any camera they were in front of, would have reminded people of the charges. They would have found the women who were alleging the accusations. They would have had big posters of the quotes that they said, especially from his mother, about what a womanizer he is. They would have shown constantly over. It wouldn't matter what they were talking about. They would have constantly done this, and Democrats don't have that same unified ways to go after them.
Which is inexcusable at this point. It's inexcusable, and we're going to see how that they continue to drop the ball, and they've lost all kinds of momentum. I wanted to end it with this. I just wanted to talk about this briefly to market because it's not things haven't gone into effect yet, and it might be a bit of time, not long, but a bit before we see how this all plays out. But I did want to mention it because we've been talking about this for months, if not years. You'll be shocked to know what ban is back. Yep. Rights groups warn that Donald's executive order would restore the Muslim travel ban, and this would affect individuals from predominantly Muslim Arab countries. They're also, the mandate to officials is to identify countries with inadequate vetting processes, potentially leading to a nationality-based travel suspension. And of course, the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee and the National Iranian American Council are considering legal challenges, but we shouldn't even be here at all.
It's even worse because the executive order would allow America to bar the entry of foreigners who have hostile attitudes. What hostile attitudes? That will be determined by the Trump administration. And as you already said about a year ago, during the start of this Israel war, which is still, by the way, ongoing, it's a temporary pause, that he would bar Palestinian refugees, he would bar people who had radical Islamic ideology. How do you define that? How do you test it? And this is yet another way for them to essentially block the entry of Black and brown people to this country. White supremacy has always been violent. It has always been self-destructive. And a plurality of this country decided that they would temporarily want to feel great again by destroying themselves and destroying the rest of us. And I think there'll be a recurring theme here for the next 3 to 4 years, is that I want everyone to notice, I just want to be as clear as possible, all of this is in service of white supremacy. Listen to Stephen Miller, listen to Steve Bannon, listen to Nick Fuentes, just literally listen to what they're saying. They believe America belongs to white Christian men, civic identity, restoration. It has been overrun. We are replacing them. We are weakening them. All four of us here are the woke. We are DEI. And now they have Donald Trump as their vessel, who is not just vindictive, but also violent and vengeful and the most powerful man on earth. I use powerful in quotes. And, I don't want to end on an ominous note, but everyone who thinks there'll be elections in 2 to 4 years, free and fair elections, why do you think that? Like, someone said that to me today in Blue Sky. They're like, in 4 years, we'll get them. I'm like, are you not paying attention? Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of Florida, when asked, like they were asking her to get on the record and say, like, a president can only serve, right, like 2 terms. She goes, yes, it's in the Constitution for now. So I give you 2020. He lost the election. He's the only person to this day, only president, Republican or Democrat, refuses to admit that he lost and incited a violent insurrection. The good news is is that a majority of Americans and the majority of the world to this day, Mary, are against the violent insurrection. So it'll be catnip for the base. The base will get radicalized. The base is going to get screwed by these policies. And we need to do our part to chip away, Mary, to chip away. And I want to end on this because I know you have farewell thoughts and we're closing. I know everyone wants like a slam dunk. They want a grand slam. I repeat, this is going to be a long walk. Cuts. Think about death by 1,000 cuts. Cut, 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 cut. That's how we have to be as the resistance.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's why I said at the top, don't be shocked. Don't be surprised. Don't think it's all unbelievable. They have been telling us, he has been telling us for years, and in some cases, decades, who they are, what they're planning, what their priorities are. None of us fall under the umbrella of priorities for this administration. So what we need to do, as Waj said, is just keep plugging away, keep plugging away. Don't get demoralized. You can't be demoralized by something you already know is coming, right? So don't waste energy. Like, don't let certain things sink their teeth into you, because that's just going to make it harder for us to stay engaged, because the first way we fight them is to stay engaged. The best way for them to win is for us to say, you know what, I just can't. I can't. It's too much. I have to check out. So don't check out. We're not checking out. We're not going anywhere. So we will be back next Tuesday at 12 Eastern p.m. live. Also, don't forget, Mary Trump Live is every evening at 6 p.m. Eastern. And, we're going to keep adding programming. There is so much to cover. And we also want to kind of step outside of politics a little bit and bring you guys some content that is less fraught, shall we say. I'm thinking of just having a whole show that's just emergency kittens or something. But Mercedes won't let me. Anyway,
that would probably get the most views out of any show ever.
I'd be there. I was about to say, Tara, that would be like 300,000 live viewers.
Yes, we should all bring our pets. Yeah. I'll bring Rafi. We can all hang out with our pets.
I think maybe we can. I still think Mercedes isn't going to let us do it. But anyway,
Mary, you'd also be depressed because literally we could be saying the most brilliant things, like 30,000 viewers, and all you won't speak for 5 minutes. We'll just hold up our cats, and it'll be like, "Have you seen this Mary Trump show? My God!"
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm officially renaming Catter Day, as if I have the authority to do that. Emergency Kitten Day, but so we can do that at least on Twitter. Anyway, to all of our amazing moderators, thank you. To everybody watching, whether from Twitter or on YouTube, everybody listening to our podcast. Remember, all of our shows are on podcast. It's very exciting. Anywhere you listen to your podcast.
Can I do a shameless Seneca plug?
Do a shameless Seneca plug.
So Michelle Kinney and I, we do a show called The Stakes for the Seneca Project. So if you guys want to check us out, we do it live every Thursday at 7:30 on YouTube and just like this. So come and check us out too. And we also have a podcast. We figured it out. So if you guys enjoy Seneca, you can hear more from us too at 7:30 live on Thursdays.
That's excellent. And I also want to thank all of our super stickers and donors. You guys are amazing and really help us out tremendously. And we're going to have a bunch of deep dive videos every day. Some coming out next few hours. Donald actually gave an address at the World Economic Forum. So there is a lot to talk about in terms of the ongoing and kind of diabolical crypto grift. So keep an eye out for that. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. And if you click on the bell, you'll be alerted anytime new videos drop, which is frequently and increasing in frequency. Okay, so thanks to Mercedes and Lecty and Malone and Dennis and the rest of the team, to Dean Obadalia, the Italian
Obadalia.
Dean Obadalia, and Tara Stepmeyer, Brian Karam, Waj Ali. It's always great to see you guys. We will see you back here next Tuesday live for the nerds, and I will see you all later. In the meantime, please, everybody, stay safe and be kind. Take it easy.
Ciao.